This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Welcome to Six Tackles with Gus, a special episode of the podcast this week, a review of two outstanding games of State of Origin footy, and we've got a whole round of rugby league to follow. We are presented thanks to our friends at the Tab. Phil Gould, welcome.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
I'm fighting fit. You've covered some ground this week.
I have. I was up in Brisbane Monday night for 100% footy, back to Sydney on Tuesday morning, down to Wollongong Tuesday night, back to Sydney, up to Brisbane on Wednesday for Origin, back to Sydney, up to Newcastle for the game last night. I got home at 12:45am this morning. I drove home from Newcastle after all of that. Extremely tired, laid down on the lounge, fell straight asleep, and the alarm went off at 6 because I had a 8am meeting this morning.
Right. Your chauffeur's having the week off, is he?
Sorry?
Your chauffeur's having the week off, is he?
I did all the driving myself, yeah.
Right. There you are. Well, I'd love to have your mileage. A quick explainer. So we were going to be here on Monday to do a preview of Origin, but Gus had to go to Brisbane earlier than we thought, and you might have noticed he had a bit on early in the week. So we thought, do you know what we'll do? Let's get together on Friday and review the two Origin games, because we had, obviously, men's Origin Wednesday, women's Origin last night. So there's a lot to talk about on the back of that. We're wondering who's going to back up for their club teams this weekend. When you were coaching New South Wales, Gus, did you always encourage your players to get back there and put in for their club?
Was the one thing I said after every Origin game we had was I think a mark of an Origin player is not just to play the game in your Origin, but to back up for your club on the weekend if you're asked to do so. They're the players that helped you get this jersey. They're the ones that got you into this representative team, and you need to go back and play well for your club. So I think it's the mark of an Origin player to be able to do that, to back up and go back into club football. And there are some important games this weekend where they need their stars to back up, for sure. Panthers, for example, in recent years, because they've been so well placed come Origin time, they've actually rested their Origin stars the last couple of years. I'm not sure they'll have that luxury this year. They need to keep winning. So, and there's a few other teams in that boat. So they'll be. We thought by Friday, by doing it today, that we'd have a better read on actually as who is backing up, but we probably won't know till an hour before kickoff with most sides what the representative players are doing.
Well, the great news is that there were no injuries as such out of Origin, so if they can back up, if they're up to backing up after the gruelling nature of that game on Wednesday, they should be okay to get there. Let's start with the women's Origin, though. So take the 5 club games last week and the 2 Origins. 6 of the 7 teams that won were outsiders, including Brisbane last night, who the Tab had at about $5 head-to-head. And they've been able to hold off the 3-0 whitewash.
I think for the whole season, something like 46% of underdogs have been winning, which is an extraordinary high percentage.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
This competition could flip on its head, honestly, for the back half of the season. I mean, it could be completely different to what the first half has seen. So there's a lot of footy to be played just yet.
Queensland 18, New South Wales 14 at McDonald Jones Stadium, nearly 22,000. Fantastic crowd. So it was low scoring in the early stages. Queensland scored in the 7th minute, and there were a couple of near misses, none more so than poor Isabel Kelly. And then New South Wales went whack, 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 20th, 30th, 48th minute. But as they invariably always seem to do, Queensland raised an effort and got there by 4 points in the end.
Well, the first sort of 50 minutes of play was pretty much what we'd seen in the first 2 games. Queensland strike early, New South Wales fight their way back and then suddenly get some ascendancy. And just when you thought last night we'd see a repeat of that, Queensland found something else. And full credit to them. They'd been beaten 32-12 and 26-6 in the 2 previous games. New South Wales were playing well and had scored some tries to get to the front 14-6. And you thought, well, they'll just go on with it from here. Queensland found a way. They just kept hanging in defence. They defended really grimly. They played as physical as they could. They changed their starting lineup a little bit. They sent Chelsea Lenaducci out there early just to do a job, and she did a great job. And then all of a sudden, the second half, you could just feel it. You could just feel New South Wales weren't going onto it. Queensland started to get a little bit of ball, and then they crafted their way back to 18-14. And from there, you could tell New South Wales then started to protect the lead. So rather than trying to score more points and go further ahead as they had in the previous 2 games, they could see Queensland in the rear vision mirror and started to protect that. And once you do that, you invite the opposition in. And that's what Queensland did. And it was Chelsea Lenaduci that scored the winning try. None more deserved than her. She got sent off virtually on the full-time siren, sent to the sin bin on the full-time siren, but it didn't make any difference. They held on the Queenslanders, and that's a great effort from them. Great Queensland spirit. We've seen it in Origin so many times. History just repeats, doesn't it, in Origin football?
Yep. The 3-0 clean sweep. Obviously, this is only early days for 3-game series for women, but we've seen it in the men's Origin. It's so hard to win 3-0.
Absolutely,
so hard.
Yeah, it's hard. You've either got to be really dominant or really committed, and it's a mental challenge. It really is a mental challenge more than the physical challenge, and sometimes the physical challenge too. But it's New South Wales looked like they were going to go on with it last night, and Queensland just found something extra. They really did. Now, whatever had motivated them, other than just Queensland spirit and not wanting to lose 3-0, maybe it was the last game for their skipper. I don't know, but they found a way to hang in there. They had a plan, they executed it well, and they were finished full of running at the back end. And I thought their defence was tremendous. Where they'd been found wanting in the first couple of games, they put up the maroon wall and they refused New South Wales entry when it really counted.
So with respect to Ali Brigginshaw, she came off the bench last night.
She did, yeah. Chelsea started the game. She went out there as an extra big body and threw her weight around. She really got stuck into them. She burnt herself out. When she came off, she virtually collapsed on the sideline. They've obviously said to her, go out there, and she had plenty of runs, plenty of tackles, and she's a big girl, and she took some prisoners with us. I'll tell you, she was really good. And then she came on at the back end of the game, scored the winning try. So she had a great game.
But Ali's been an icon of women's rugby league. I think she's 36 now.
Pioneer.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt, and probably the best women's player ever that we've had. If she's to retire from rep football, that would be an appropriate stage for her to leave. Yeah,
we said that right on the full-time siren, and it seemed from her reaction that might be the case. I don't know that we've had an announcement yet, but if that was to be her last game, what a way to go out. And I'm sure she won't be lost to women's rugby league, and she'll be bobbing up somewhere post-career. But if that was her last game, wonderful way to finish.
So the stage is set for a great NRLW season, which you can watch on 9. We've got every game. It's 6 games around on 9's Wide World of Sports. It's the home of Women's Rugby League, and we'll have it covered for you right throughout the NRLW season. State of Origin 1, Suncorp Stadium, Wednesday night. New South Wales 18 over Queensland 6. The first time since 97-98 that New South Wales have been able to win consecutive games at Suncorp Stadium. Obviously, a dominant performance in the middle of the field. A lot of the fallout has been discussions around potential changes for Queensland, and Daly Cherry Evans is the man who's being discussed widely. But Payne Haas, he rolled over the top of Queensland's pack. They just completely blew them away in the middle.
He was stunning. And even more so when you consider that he hardly trained all week.
Yes, that's right.
He was under an injury cloud the whole time, so he's quite a special specimen, is Payne Haas. But I thought he was ably supported by all his forwards. I think Asaya Yeo was really good. I think in previous Origin series, Queensland have done a good job when he's brought his Panthers game to Origin, where he does a lot of passing and a lot of first receiver stuff. He caught them napping a number of times in that game because he had no intention of passing the ball and being a ball player. He just kept bouncing off that left foot step with his big frame. He kept pushing them out of the way. I thought Mitch Barnett was good. I thought Liam Martin was good. Really, all the forwards did their job, and they totally dominated the Queensland side. It was a strange feeling game watching it. The one feeling I had the whole game was that New South Wales were never in danger. And I guess they felt that. I really think they felt that. I thought they played a controlled, conservative type game plan. I think their focus was physicality, to run the ball hard and to really try and dish out punishment when they had the ball, to defend smartly, which they did. And I don't think they ever really felt threatened by Queensland. Queensland's only try came when they were down to 12 men. We'll talk about that little period later. But it was kind of like, we've got the game under control, so let's not invite them back into it by doing something silly and turning the ball over and giving them a chance to pick up an intercept or a drop ball or what have you. And they really closed it out in typical Origin style. I guess if you looked at the 3-game series from a New South Wales perspective, all right, if we want to win in Queensland, we just need to go up there and get the job done. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to look fancy. It needs to be physical. It needs to be professional. And that's exactly what they did. Watching the game, there are so many more opportunities for them. in attack. There are a lot of opportunities which won't be lost on them, and now that they're one up in the series, I think if they start game 2 pretty much the same physical way as they started game 1, then as that game unfolds, you'll find them. I think that's when you'll really find Mitchell Moses and Dylan Edwards come into their own and start to ignite these outside backs, and I think they can cause Queensland no end of trouble. I saw some real opportunities for New South Wales that I'm sure New South Wales have seen, but they just didn't want to go there on Wednesday night. Those opportunities will be available for them in game 2.
You know what? Even from the first set of the game, they ran 60 metres.
Powerful, yeah. Really
so
powerful.
Much power.
Yeah. They got some penalties early, which helped, and it certainly didn't help Queensland. And, you know, when you talked about some of the Queensland playmakers come under a little bit of criticism, but it's hard when you spend most of your time coming out of your own end of the field trying to get clearing kicks and you've got pressure on you the whole time. And they never really got in attacking zones all that much. I thought New South Wales just totally dominated the key areas of the game, and you can see it in the statistics as well. Line breaks and tackle busts and missed tackles from Queensland, like 49 missed tackles, which was incredible, 27 ineffective tackles. New South Wales, 49 tackle breaks, Queensland less than half that. It was just a dominant physical performance. It wasn't what I would call skillful. It wasn't based on structures and plays and strategy. It was just sheer Origin brutality, and they dominated, and there wasn't much Queensland could do about it. The only try Queensland scored was against 12 men. Other than that, I never felt threatened at any stage that they were going to concede a try, and I think there are a lot more tries on offer for New South Wales as the series goes on.
What are you seeing?
Well, I'm not going to say, but there are plenty of opportunities. I mean, plenty of opportunities. Plenty of opportunities. I mean, if they want to be more expansive from their own end of the field, I think there are tremendous opportunities.
You sound like Donald Trump.
You'll get clawed to give you a game plan.
Get clawed. Tremendous opportunities, wonderful opportunities.
Wonderful opportunities. More opportunities than I've ever seen. I know about opportunities.
No one knows more about opportunities than I do.
Yeah. Some say the most opportunities. Some say the best opportunities.
Oh, very funny. Very funny. Your man Max King went good.
Terrific. Yeah, I was up in, you know, where the studio is there, where we do the show. So I sat up there on my own. It was quiet. And so when Max came out, he came out right in front of me. And I watched him. And as most kids do when they're having their first Origin game and they're coming off the bench, they get out there and it's pretty frantic because the game's going 100 mile an hour and you want to keep up. And he was frantic for like 2 sets. Like he was really rushing around, and then he kind of got into his rhythm, and then I think we scored, and he got to hit one up from the kickoff where they didn't kick the ball to Spencer, and Max had to take it up on the other side of the field, and he kind of then got into his rhythm. And I said I had some coffee with his family that afternoon. I went around to see his family come up to the game. I said he'll enjoy it because Origin, there's so much fatigue in Origin, and when you want to have a run, you get to have a run. No one's going to get in your way if you want to go and have your run. So I said he won't have to worry about getting his runs up and getting his hands on the ball. I thought his movements in defence were excellent. I thought his ruck control was excellent. And he virtually did what he does for the Bulldogs every week. He was gassed. I mean, it's obviously a much faster and more brutal brand of football because at the club level, he can play 70 or 80 minutes really easy, but he puts so much energy, particularly into his first stint, that he was great. I was really, really happy for him.
What did you think when he was picked?
I thought it would suit him. Yeah, he'd earned it. He'd earned it. He'd really earned the spot. You know, Bulldogs are having a good year, and we're not getting carried away by where we are. But if you wanted to point to players that have been major contributors to that, Max King has been a forward leader in our side for a couple of seasons now, and he's a tough kid, and he can play long minutes. He plays under duress, and in Origin, he's the typical type of player that Queensland have been picking for years and years and years that New South Wales kind of ignore. New South Wales tend to go for the bigger and flashier and the bloke who can unload the ball and score the tries, where Queensland have built their Origin history on really hard-working, honest forwards that don't want to be the stars of the team. They just want to do all the gritty, hard work. And Max King is that bloke. He's the bloke that will go out and do that for you. He's happy to be an unsung hero. He's happy to he played with humility, and he did. And he's a wonderful bloke, lovely bloke, a lovely family. And they were so thrilled that he was there, and it was a special time. I know what he's been through, and it was a really special day for him.
Yeah, so he had 2 years out of the game between Melbourne and Canterbury.
Yeah, he did. He had a very bad Achilles injury. he always showed promise. I think he was a Newcastle junior and he got recruited by the Gold Coast, went up there and showed real promise at the Gold Coast, and he was recruited by the Melbourne Storm. Now, Melbourne Storm don't buy duds, and he went down there and he got this Achilles injury straight away. And for whatever reason, these tendon injuries like Achilles and patella tendons, there's no rhyme or reason to the recovery period. It's virtually a genetic thing sometimes. And if you're susceptible to as this has been explained to me by medical people, I'm not a medical person, but recovery can take a bit of time. And of course, it was around the COVID period too, I think, when he first got the injury. So he didn't have great access to medical staff, and they just couldn't get it right in Melbourne, and they ended up and they had to release him. And I think he went home to Newcastle and he was working with some rehab people up there, and they kind of get it to about 90%, but he could feel it. It wasn't right. He didn't have power. He didn't have strength. And I'd only just started at the Bulldogs, and I got a phone call. I actually I got an email from a guy up there that was doing his rehab to say, I've been working with this bloke, Max King. I've never met a more dedicated and disciplined individual, and he's not having much luck with this, but he's working really hard. Could you have a look at him? Could you, and as it turned out, his manager, who I know really well, Stephen Gillis, rang me the next week. He said, I've got this bloke, Max King. I said, yeah, where's he been? He said, he's been in Melbourne. He said, he's got this injury. They can't quite get it right. I said, well, send him down. I'll get the medical people to have a look at it. I said, we'll work with him. Let's see what we can do. So we gave him an opportunity, but, that's the easy part. The hard part's to get it right and get him going. And I think I said to you a few weeks ago when the day he had his first run on grass at Belmore Oval, and I drove past. And I remember too, we had an opposed session early January, and I was there watching it. It was on the back ovals out on the end. And I just took a little 10-second snippet of him hitting the ball up, and I sent it to his manager. I said, your boy's back in work. I said, he's going good. And then a few weeks later, I rang his manager, because we only signed him for 12 months, and we signed him on just an opportunity contract. And we were going to go into the first trial game of the year. And I rang his manager and I said, that Max King? He said, yeah. I said, he'll probably play in the trial this week. He said, oh, that's good. That's great. He's all right. I said, yeah, he's going all right. I said, listen, I want to sign him up for a couple of years. He said, is he going that good? I said, no, he's going terrible. I said, but I want to sign him up for a couple of years. And he said, all right, I can't get down this way. I said, he's playing Friday night. I said, you'll see what I mean. You'll seriously see it. You'll see what I mean. And he went out in the trial game, and from then on, it's just been one thing after the other. As I said to you a couple of years ago, when the Bulldogs were having a very, very tough year in 23, Max had a very, very serious sternum injury, played with a lot of pain, played every week, trained every session. Physically, he couldn't do his weights. He was sort of in rehab the whole week. He couldn't do the tackle sessions and what have you. He lost a lot of weight. Like he usually goes around about 113, 114 kilos. He's not small, but he was playing at like 101 kilos, which was a big loss for him. And it really affected him, but he kept turning up because we were short on troops and the results weren't going good. I think of the 2022 team that when I first went to the Bulldogs, 2022, there are only two players that remain at the club. One's Max King and one's Matt Burton. Everything else has been turned over, and Max King has been the cornerstone of the revival there at the Bulldogs.
Well, he's played nearly, I think, 76 games I think he's played.
And he gets better
back-to-back years.
He gets better every year. His training gets better every year. This year he had a terrific off-season. You could just tell he's been terrific for the side this year, and he deserved his Origin call-up. It was an inspired choice by Laurie Daly, and his selection team.
That mentality and those attributes is what Laurie Daly pinpointed when he was asked about his selection.
Absolutely, and Laurie gets it. Like Laurie gets Origin, and he knows what Queenslanders have done over a long period of time, that they really recognise those hard-working players rather than the flashy players. And I think Max King, front row is such an important position in Origin football, because if you get a couple of injuries and you've got to get someone to play long, long minutes in the middle of the field, and you're playing against the smartest halves in the game and the smartest hookers and fullbacks in the game, it can be a really daunting experience for those big men, where Max King has got the ability to play long minutes at fast pace and keep up and keep finding something extra. And he did that. He was absolutely great. And I hope he gets a chance to go to Perth and do it all again.
A lot of the focal point of New South Wales, particularly in the lead-up, a lot of the analysis was around that left-hand side. I think we spoke about it last week. Toia, Mitchell, Angus Crichton, Mitchell Moses. It was wrong of us to overlook the other side because Zach Lomax, I have never seen a player take to Origin like him. He is built for it. And this isn't a Bulldogs, this is we're not blowing the Bulldogs trumpet here. I don't think I've seen a better centre than Stephen Crichton.
Good player, isn't he?
Oh,
I think with Zach Lomax, and I think in commentary I might have been saying it 2 years before he got selected. He was struggling the Dragons were struggling. He was playing centre and then ended up putting him on the wing. And I've said for a lot of years, I think even Brad Fittler was coaching him at some one time. I said, don't be afraid to pick Zach Lomax. He's an Origin player. He's just got that Origin physicality about him. He's got a presence about him, and he can make things happen. He can force errors in the opposition. He can make big plays. Ball bounces for him. He's big and strong and athletic, and he kicks goals. And when he got his opportunity, it was probably a little bit of a surprise to most people, I guess, but he certainly proved his worth, and he's Origin class. He's Origin tough. People ask you what an Origin player is, and it's hard to put into words, but when you see it, you see it.
The tougher the better for him.
Absolutely, loves it. Loves the physical confrontation. He can make things happen, as he did with the last try. Stephen Crichton, brilliant. Probably, I think, one of the best defensive centres I've ever seen in my life. Big, tall, long reach. What was interesting when Brian Toia got sent to the sin bin just before half time, I thought, well, I wonder how they'll manage this. And as soon as they ran out, Zach Lomax went to the left wing. And I said, well, two things here. I said, what they're doing is saying to Zach Lomax, you're going to have to look after Xavier Coates and that high ball. We can't put another fella out there that can't catch or hasn't been in that position before, which was very smart strategy. And number two, we'll leave Stephen Crichton to mark them other two blokes over there. It's only Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow and Valentine Holmes, two of the greatest and fastest ball runners in the game. We'll just let Stephen Crichton look after that over there on his own. And when Queensland did they score their try, they scored it on the other side of the field. They didn't score it down Stephen's side. He's a great defensive centre. And, when you say that, then you have vision of the try he set up for Lomax, the first try where he, stepped back against the grain, had four defenders in front of him and managed to engage them all to get Lomax away. Managed to engage them all, beat one, then gather the other three together to get the pass away. It was just so classy. Latrell Mitchell's play on the other side of the field. I mentioned it at half-time in the broadcast. Crichton's service to his winger, Lomax, and Mitchell's mid-air catch and pass. I've never seen anyone do that. Mid-air catch and pass, quick hands to put Brian Toia away were just two great pieces of magic. That's what Origin is. That's why the best are so good. Those elite players are so good. They can come up with big moments like that. I thought it was an excellent mentality to take into the game. It was a great strategy. And the good thing was they stuck to it. The two halves stuck to it. I thought the two halves were outstanding. I've heard some people talking about Cleary's game and Mitchell Moses. They didn't do this and didn't do that. They played exactly the way Origin should be played.
Ran the ball.
I think Cleary has now worked out that Origin football is not club football. I don't play like I play for my club. I don't set up with the same shapes and the same plays and try to go around teams. His running game was reminiscent of what it was in the grand final last year. He got some offloads. He had some good runs. He dug into the line. He kicked well. He had a hand at some stage of every one of the tries we scored. I thought he was outstanding. I just didn't understand the goal kicking, and it will probably mystify him as well as to what happened there. And even his shot at field goal. I mean, I didn't have the comment. I had the commentary kind of in my ear because I was sitting up in the studio, so it was very faint. Did Andrew Johns questioned the quality of the ball or the ball?
He said it sounded different, and he wondered whether it was the same ball or whether it was inflated to the same pressure. He said it sounded different.
Yeah, it was coming off the boot different. Even in general play, their general play kicking both sides. And Valentine Holmes missed his kick too, and then he handed over to Zach Lomax, and he missed his kick, which was a much more simple kick, for a conversion. So I don't know. I didn't hear in any of the reviews if anyone questioned the ball or the quality of the ball, but I've never seen Nathan kick like that. Had he kicked them all as he usually does, I mean, it's a pretty big scoreline, and but New South Wales were very, very dominant, very, very controlled, masterfully executed. I thought the halves were brilliant. The forwards were outstanding. The outside backs did what they have to do. I think the big key for New South Wales is if they can start the second game exactly the same mentality, they will find an increasing number of opportunities to move the ball. And I think Crichton and Latrell Mitchell Mitchell Moses are going to have a different sort of game in game 2. I think they'll be able to run in some points.
Robert Toia. You said he'd go good.
He's a good player, man. Yeah,
He looked right at home.
Wait till after game 3. He's a baby. Like, he's only 10 games into a career, but he's Origin class. No risk in the world.
He's there for as long as he wants now, you'd think.
He's going to play there for a long, long time, and and hopefully injury willing, that gets him plenty of games as well. But no, he did his job. No risk in the world.
Okay, Ask Gus, Origin edition. We all know what this question's going to be from Ben Robbins. If you were Billy Slater, what changes would you make to the Queensland team for game 2? Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell Billy how to suck eggs?
No. Look, one of the things I said in the post-match, Laurie made a comment when they interviewed him in the dressing room, and his last comment was, as most coaches say when they win the first game of the series, we haven't done anything yet, And I came back and I said, well, I think you have done one thing. You've absolutely shattered Queensland. I can see it in the coach's face. I can see it in their faces. Right immediately after the game, they were a bit shell-shocked at just how far behind they were in New South Wales. I don't think there's any hiding for the fact that they've come out of that game and gone, crikey, what are we in for here? Here we are at home in front of our home crowd and our opportunity, and we got reeled up for the game. We had our best time. We picked our best team possible, and we were just never in it. So do they panic and make forced changes, hoping for a miracle? Some of the things they saw as a positive out of the game and saying, well, let's put Dearden to halfback and drop Daly Cherry Evans. And I made the point, Dearden came on and showed some flash and looked good when he came on the field, but can he be out there for the first 25 minutes and make 20 tackles when they keep running at him with the ball and still be able to give that bit of flair at the back end of each half? It's the same with Harry Grant. Harry Grant's best performances at Queensland have been coming off the bench. Ben Hunt gets out there and does the hack work early, and Harry Grant comes off the bench and then does his stuff,
David Middleton told me a stat before kickoff the other night that Queensland have never won a game where Harry Grant has started.
Yeah, and he hasn't
Which isn't a knock on Harry Grant.
No, he hasn't played much football early, but they get targeted by the opposition players, so the more juice you can take out of him defensively. And remember, Queensland had little ball for the first 20 minutes. New South Wales dominated possession, got some penalties, dominated field position. Harry is out there doing a lot of work, a lot of hack work. And normally when he comes on after 20, 25 minutes and he's sharp and fresh and everyone's getting tired, he's tired at that point. He can't have the impact that he wanted to do. So I think if I was Queensland, I don't think Ben Hunt's going to be available.
No.
So I'd be looking to maybe a Reid Marnie to start the game for them, to get them into the game and to do a lot of the hack work early. He's got a kicking game, which could be advantageous out of dummy half. He's got a running game. He can roll the forwards and get them going forward. He's a busy, eager defender. He puts a lot of pressure on other players. And then you've got Harry to come on fresh. That would probably be the first thing that I'm thinking of.
Could I throw 2 other names at you that could fill that role?
Yeah.
Max Plath,
yeah,
if he's back.
Yeah.
And Jermaine Hopgood.
Yeah. Certainly Jermaine, but certainly not as a dummy half.
But not in the first 20 minutes?
In the first 20 minutes of a game. Jermaine Hopgood is one of those Queensland-type players that I would have no fear of playing because he's got a high work rate in him and he's Reid Marnie's got a hell of a lot more experience than those two blokes, all right? And he's been in Origin camps before. He hasn't played yet, but he's had a hell of a lot more experience than them at club level, and he's a real competitor. He's also a niggler. He's also, in the face of the opposition. He can get them distracted. He can have people looking for him. He can put people off their game. That's what he does really well. And if he could get through the early part of the game and then give Harry Grant opportunity to come into the game when other players are tired and there's a bit of fatigue in the contest, well, I think that's all well and good. Harry had to do far too much work early and far too much hack work to have an impact as he normally does later in the game. And he hasn't played much football. He really hasn't played much football. The Cherry Evans thing, I don't. I get it. Dearden's time is close, and it's probably getting closer. But
Dearden hasn't played halfback regularly.
No, I wouldn't make that change at the moment. I just don't think you can judge Cherry Evans based on the way the Queensland forwards were dominated and the way the game went early on, and then they got themselves behind on the scoreboard and. New South Wales were able to pressure him, and he never really got into the contest, but his forwards didn't allow him to get into the contest either. If they can get off to a better start, Cherry Evans will come into his own with his experience. It's easy to find fault with some of the things that their playmakers didn't do, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity either. And they've got to get their start right. They've got to get into the game right. They've got to stop giving away penalties. And the penalties come because they're under pressure.
Of course.
You know, they're trying to get up off and get in the face of the opposition, or they're trying to hold them down a little bit, and they're not getting square at marker. All the little things they got penalised for. I thought there were too many penalties, but that's just a personal thing about Origin. I don't like penalties in Origin. But it certainly played against Queensland in the opening part of the game. And once that happens to you in an Origin game, the fatigue level rises very, very quickly because the opposition is so good and they're so powerful, and you feel like you're on the back foot the whole time, and then you're working the ball out of trouble and you're making no metres, and your kicker's under pressure late in the tackle count, and he's kicking the ball, and Dylan Edwards is catching it on the full under no pressure and roaring it back at you, and he's linking up with Brian Toia and Zach Lomax. They say you kick the other way, and Zach Lomax is passing the ball to Dylan. He's getting it over to Brian Toia again, so they were able to play from the back. Queensland, look, they weren't in it. They just weren't in it, which means they've got to handle the start better. They've got to get themselves into the game better. So maybe you look at a couple of starters. Maybe...
I was surprised Corey Horsburgh wasn't in the team.
Now, was he injured or did he
No.
he wasn't? He had a HIA and then he come back and played. Yeah, so
He
Corey...
played the last game for Canberra. He played over in New Zealand.
Yeah, Corey's the type of bloke who could do a bit of the hack work early, so then Mo Fatawaker can have his impact when he comes on. I felt that those forwards just had to work too hard early in the game. So that would be the only things I'd look at. I would definitely try to find a way to get Harry Grant back on the bench in the early part of the game, and maybe another front rower to do a bit of the hack work early to have more impact from a Mo Fatawaker coming off the bench. Other than that, I don't think there's too many other solutions. Pretty much everything else was as good as you can get. You know, Reece Walsh is not going to be available. There's always that argument between he and Ponga. Cobbo.
Well, that's weird.
Selwyn Cobbo. I can't.
He wasn't even in the... Like, Jesse Arthurs was in the extended squad.
Yeah, but Jesse Arthur's been going good.
Of course he has, but has Cobbo fallen that far down the pecking order? His form hasn't been too bad. I know the team's not going that well, but he's been playing okay.
Yeah. No, I can't knock the selection of the Queensland side. I really can't. But the way the game was played, that game was over. I felt watching the game, that game was over after about 25 minutes. There was no coming back for Queensland. The 12-man situation, the sin bin, gave Queensland some oxygen in the halftime break, and they came out and they got the try, which sort of got them on the... But New South Wales virtually held them at bay. They just kept them away, comfortable. They were leading 14-6 and it wasn't going to go any further, and then they got the try to put it out to 12. I see a lot more tries for New South Wales next time. They scored 4 this time.
Tremendous opportunities.
There's tremendous opportunities. A lot of opportunities. Some say great opportunities.
So Queensland have never won in Perth, but every time they've gone to Perth, they've been 1-0 up in the series.
Yeah.
They haven't been to Perth trying to save it yet.
Yeah, no, I don't have the exact figures, but their record's pretty good of being 1-0 down in the series and levelling up and getting to a decider. Most series go to a decider, but they're going to have to work hard. We've still got to get through 2 weekends of club football. You said that no New South Wales players had injuries. Stephen Crichton's got an elbow injury that we're sort of monitoring. Hopefully he'll be all right. These players have still got to get through 2 club rounds, and then they've got to be picked and go again. Queensland, really, if I was, not that I want to advise Queensland at all, I don't have to. Billy will have it well in train. But for me, they probably need a rugged forward starter that they can just burn out for the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get them in the game, to give Fatawaker that impact off the bench. And I think they should go for someone like a Reid Marnie to give Harry Grant an easier access into the game when he's needed, to be able to provide what he does. I think it's too hard for Harry particularly with the little football that he's played too. He hasn't played a lot of football.
He played 58 minutes against the Sharks.
Yeah, so,
after 4 weeks out.
Yeah, so he's it's not enough to go into Origin, and particularly to start when you're playing against a really good, experienced side who knew exactly where he was at all times. And but the way Payne Haas and Barnett and Yeo really took to them. I mean, those three middle forwards just absolutely took to them. And, Angus Crichton was good. Liam Martin was good. And then the fellas that come off the bench did their job. King come on, did really well. Was a really good, solid performance to win 18-6 at Lang Park in the first Origin. That's a big win. That's 4 tries to 1. That's a big win. Big win. I know it's only 12 points, but that's a big win.
Peter Sims is very switched on. He says, he asks, was having Craig Bellamy as an advisor a genius move, especially considering it's likely he taught Billy everything he knows about coaching?
He taught a lot of them blokes what they know. Actually, we were 100% footy the other night. I asked Munster, I said, your club coach is helping out with the Origin side in New South Wales. My mail is that he's going to do a tip sheet on all the opposition players. When he gets to number 6, what's he going to say about you? And he said, don't hang around with me, he said. He was his tip. So when Laurie Daly is really good mates with our Bulldog chairman, Adam Drucy, right. Yeah. And when Adam was saying that Laurie really wanted to apply for the job, and I said it's really important that he has experienced coaches and whether it's Ivan Cleary or Ricky Stewart or Craig Bellamy, some fellas that are actually coaching all day, every day, just to be around, just as a sounding board and all that. And I was really pleased that he picked up Craig Bellamy and he really agreed to do it.
Oh, what a huge coup.
It's a huge coup. And it's just, and I don't know what the relationship was like. For the fellas that are in camp, Craig Bellamy didn't have a lot to say and didn't have a lot to do, but he was always around. It was nice to talk to, good to talk to him. I'd imagine in their quiet moments, Laurie's talking to Craig, but it's just nice to know that he had that experienced bloke on his shoulder there in case there needed to be a decision around interchange or around changing positions, and if they got down to 12 men, and just a calm voice at a time, because it's not something, if you're not coaching regularly every day, every week, things like interchange and sin bins and all these sort of things can get you a little bit frantic, and even in the organising of training sessions, the way the players communicated to players this year, the nuances in the rules and how referees are looking at the game. So he put together a really good team. Matt King, Dean Young from St George, who he knows really well, and Craig Bellamy, who's probably the greatest coach of all time. To have them in his corner, I think that was really astute from Laurie to call on those people. And we all know Laurie knows Origin, and Laurie's got the passion, and Laurie can pull people together like no other, and people play for Laurie. There's never been a question on that. But I'm really pleased he took someone like Craig Bellamy with him into that arena, and it's a great asset to have.
The NRL season is here. We're in Origin time. We're right in the thick of things at the moment. For the best time in sport, Tab has the best app in sport.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Now, just before we go to a break and come back to have a look at round 13, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate my colleagues at Nine's Wide World of Sports. The ratings for both women's and men's Origin have been unbelievable. Women's State of Origin 1, 927,000. Women's State of Origin 2, 1,067,000. Last night, 995,000. Series average, 996,333 people per game throughout the entire series. A brilliant production, and well done to everyone associated with Nine and also the players themselves. And on Wednesday night, Gus, from a ratings perspective, it was the best Game 1 result since 2016. It was Australia's number one program with total people and all key demographics. It secured a total national television reach of 5.449 million and a total TV audience of 3.755 million, up 11.2% year on year. The broadcast was fantastic. The tape pieces leading into Origin, they're always a highlight, but they were really special leading into Game 1 the other night. So to everyone that I work with at Nine, congratulations to you. Gus has often said it's as good as any team he's been involved in. That was a brilliant broadcast, and the numbers, I think, are reflective of the quality.
Channel 9 makes the game bigger than it is, makes it better than it is. Very, very talented people there. And as I've said, I've been in team sport my whole life. The best team I've ever been involved with is Channel 9. The people there and the talent and the work ethic and the quality of work and how dedicated they are to their work. They're inspiring people Really great people.
Yeah, and the great thing being part of the team too is that we all genuinely love what we do, and we all get on famously. There's even a little less tension between the Queenslanders and the New South Welshman this year.
Oh, I don't know about that. I saw Fatty before the game.
Was he there?
No, he was at the Sofitel Hotel. I went over there to meet the King family just to wish them luck for Max's debut, and Fatty had been doing a function there. Probably talking about 1995.
He can talk about it endlessly, and it never gets any less funny.
The stories get better and better. I've actually got to go up and do a luncheon in a couple of weeks. It's a 30-year since the 1995, and they want me to come up. I said, what, to sit and listen to Fatty talk about it again? I've got nothing to say. It's hilarious.
So one of the pieces before the game the other night was Fatty. Apparently they sat him down. He talked for an hour. We had to cut it into 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But truly, take out your role in it. I think it's the best origin story ever.
Oh, it's great. It's one of the great. It's look, and at the time the game needed it.
Yeah.
At the time the game really needed it. You know, I'll elaborate on that story more one day. But at the time, and I went to him after game 3. I said it's one of the greatest coaching performances I've ever seen. Absolutely brilliant.
So Wayne Bennett stood down because this was all at the start of the Super League thing.
Yeah.
Do you reckon Wayne Bennett would have won with that team?
With that team?
Yeah.
Look,
the point I'm getting at, it was a team perfectly suited to Fatty.
Yeah. Look, Wayne Bennett's a great coach, but I don't think in that environment at that time anyone could have done it other than Fatty.
It's just amazing how things lined up.
Yeah, because when that Origin series that year, you've got to remember that earlier in the year there was the Super League coup and they came in, and one of the things that the ARL had was its representative football. And I remember Bob Fulton and I were responsible for signing the players. Our first job was to get an Australian team and a New Zealand team so we could have test matches, and to get a New South Wales team and a Queensland team to get Origin matches. We wanted to put the representative football on. So we virtually picked those, the best we could do earlier in the season, and signed them all up. And then, of course, we had injuries and all sorts of things during the course of the year. And it was a wonderful series. Two of the fellows who played in that Queensland side, Adrian Lamb and Matt Singh, I was coaching at the Roosters at the time. And, it was important for the game that we put on a great Origin series. And it went, even though it was painful to lose, but it was great to be a part of that history. In the years since, I look back on it as really one of the great series for Origin football and what it did for rugby league at that time. It was.
It's one of the best stories in Australian sport.
Yeah, I'll elaborate more on it one day, but he did a great job, Fatty. It was absolutely wonderful.
And the first game of the series, it was 2-0.
Yeah.
A Wayne Bartram penalty goal.
We bombed about 6 tries.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was just, but they kept turning up Queensland. They kept finding a way. They kept finding. In the second game, we had a try disallowed with a minute to go that would have put us in front to level the series. He called it back a forward pass. I don't think it was, but anyway.
the footy gods.
The pass went that far, and he called it forward. And from the next play, the ball, Brett Dallas picked it up and ran 90 metres. But we would have won the game with one pass if that pass wasn't called forward. So, and then I went into the dressing room after the game to congratulate them, because I knew a lot of the kids, and it was a difficult time, the Super League war and all that. And I said, now don't rest on your laurels. I said, we're coming after you in game 3. Don't let us beat you. Make sure.
Did you really say that?
Yeah, I said, make sure we go back to Queensland and you blokes do it again. Don't rest on your laurels because you're 2-0 up in the series. But they didn't need my encouragement. Fatty had already got into them, and we busted our neck to beat them in game 3 and couldn't do it. I think we got to the front twice in game 3, and they just kept finding a way. There was everything about Origin that we love, everything that we talk about, and we talk about it not being about talent and being about courage and all those things that represents that Queensland spirit. There wasn't anyone better to articulate that to that group of players than what Fatty did at that time. And it was an incredible time. It was a difficult time for the game, but it was an incredible result for the game and went a long way towards, I believe, the ARL surviving and the support that we got from the people and the public. I think the public were inspired by it, and that's why the ARL had a lot of support in that particular confrontation.
And dare I say it, had New South Wales have won that series, we don't even think about it again.
Would never get another mention. Look, had New South Wales won that series, the game might be different today. Like a lot of things, sliding doors moments. You remember that movie Sliding Doors? I call them sliding doors moments. I just think at that time it was so important, and then when the two competitions split, I think the Newcastle win over Manly in the grand final in our competition, the way that final series was played, and there was Roosters and North Sydney and Manly and Newcastle, and all the games were sort of 17-16, 16 all, and Newcastle winning their first ever premiership, and the way they did it with the Darren Albert try, and it was kind of like an inspiration for the way the game should be and the way the game people wanted it to be. And I think that's what held the ARL together, to be honest, around that time. It's a long time ago, and I've got to think back in the memory bank about everything that happened.
Well, a lot of people listening to us wouldn't even know about the split in the game.
Players don't know. It's 30 years ago.
Well, in 2 years' time, it's 30 years in 2 years' time. We're going to have to do a documentary.
Yeah, our players weren't born.
I remember it too well.
The vast majority of players in the NRL today weren't born back then. They don't know what Super League was. They don't know what happened to the game back then.
While we're handing out plaudits to colleagues, it's an absolute travesty Fatty isn't in the Hall of Fame. An absolute travesty.
Oh, he'll be there one day.
He should be there now. If they don't put him in this year,
There should
it's
be
a G up.
Is there a media Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Well,
He could be in both.
He should be in the Media Hall of Fame, but he also should be in the Rugby League Hall of Fame.
For what he did as a player and a coach. The fun.
He played 20-odd Origins.
I know he
Fatty.
did.
Yeah.
He captained Queensland. He might have captained Australia once. He's the funniest man ever, but when he tells the story of how he got the job, he said, I'd just been filming an anti-ad for the footy show and I'm sitting in my car wiping off my lipstick. And Ross Livermore rings me and asks me if I want to coach the Queensland team.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, what number am I, Ross? 4, 5, 6? How many people have you asked before?
You know where I first met Fatty? I don't think Fatty would remember this. You know where I first met Fatty? Back in the old days, this is in the 70s, you go and play against an opposition team. You go and play St George at Cogra, or you play Manly at Brookvale, or you play North at North Sydney Oval, Cronulla at Cronulla, or Western Suburbs at Lidcombe, And you'd go and play, and then you'd have your shower, and then you'd go back to their Leeds club and have a few beers. That's what you do. And then
They're great days.
And then when you'd have a few beers, and you'd meet the opposition players, and then you'd kick on back to your Leeds club and go drive back to your Leeds club and have a few more beers. And it was the most enjoyable and the social part of the game. And I think it might have been my first game at Brookvale Oval in first grade. I can't remember. And anyway, I went back to, me and my mate, we went back to Manly Leeds Club. And we were standing in Manly Leeds Club and just sort of, a few of the Penrith boys were there and, we could see sort of Manly blokes in the distance. And my mate and I were standing there playing a poker machine. We were standing on the corner. Anyway, this red-headed thing comes over, Fatty. He said, hello, mate, how you going? I said, good. He said, Paul, how you going? Blah, blah. And he introduced us to the Manly boys and all that sort of. But he came over, welcomed us, thanks for coming back to the club, had a beer, and that's where I met Paul Vaughton for the first time back then. And you wouldn't believe it. All those years later, working together and he's coaching State of Origin. I mean, it's just incredible how life goes and what rugby league can do for you. But that was the first time I met Paul Vaughton. He went out of his way to come and introduce himself and introduce us to the Manly players that we played against on that day. And, wonderful times. I'll tell you who I ran into the other day, Terry Randall.
Right.
Yeah. I was over watching a reserve grade game at Brookvale Oval. Bulldogs were playing against Manly. And Chad Randall, Terry's son, coaches in our system, and he was there because it was local. He came over to watch the reserve grade play, and his dad come with him, Terry Randall. Hadn't seen him for yonks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Very
one of the great Manly players.
So there's the Hall of Fame for players and coaches, I think.
Yep.
And there's a contributor category to the Hall of Fame.
Do they have a Hall of Fame? Do they have a Hall of Fame for comedians?
We could make that one too.
You could make that one too.
Is he the funniest man you've ever met?
Well, you look at what he did. A primetime TV show. The footy show was iconic. That's Graham Kennedy plus Don Lane. Like they were the people that ran. You wouldn't remember all those shows back then.
Yeah, no, I do.
They were Tonight shows and like some of the biggest performers in Australian television and international television. Ran those shows and held an audience for years and years and years in primetime television, nighttime television, in variety entertainment and all that type of thing. And what Fatty did, no one could have done what he did. No one could have run that show the way he did, as absolute chaos and comedy. Like
he just took the piss out of himself his whole career.
Well, yeah, people.
What do you say? You got to be smart to play the fool.
It takes a smart man to play the fool. Yeah. He's a very smart man.
He's a great bloke. So the contributor category, James Giltnan, JJ Giltnan, George Piggins, Ken Arthurson, Peter Frolingos, Ian Hedge, John Quayle, Rabs, Frank Hyde, and my late friend David Morrow, who I miss dearly as well, was inducted just before he passed last year. So Fatty he'd qualify for all of it. Very good. This is Six Tackles with Gus, our Origin review episode. We'll do some previewing on the other side. Do you know of the last 7 games that have been played, all the club games last week in the 2 Origins? There's been six outsiders win. Did I say that at the start? I probably did.
You did, yeah.
I think I'm getting Alzheimer's. A break, and we'll come back and have a look at round 13. All right, our preview of round 13, thanks to our good friends at the Tab. Friday night football from Jubilee. The Red V at Jubilee, Gussie. You'll see it from 7:30 tonight on Channel 9. The Dragons are $1.50. The Knights are $2.60. Now, I'm going to go to my team list here. Oh, yes. So for the Dragons, young Nathan Lawson, well, I don't know how young he is. I've got to have a look at that yet because I'm calling the game. But he's a dual Olympian in the Australian Rugby Sevens team. He's going to make his debut on the wing for the Dragons, who outside of that are unchanged. And we're expecting Kalen Ponga to back up for Newcastle, who, unbelievably, again, have changed their halves. Jack Cogger's out. Gamble's at 7. Fletcher Sharp played fullback last week, goes back into the 6.
He was great at fullback, wasn't he?
He's a live wire. They almost look more dangerous with him.
Well, it's a different type of game, but, Kalen Ponga is obviously the mainstay of the team. But, yeah, very interesting one. Red V at Jubilee. I see the Red V at Jubilee probably being successful tonight.
What's it worth tipping anymore? Like, seriously, what are we even bothering for?
Yeah, as I said last week, anyone who knows anything about rugby league should be none out of 5 this week.
Some breaking news right here as we record this at 3:30 on Friday. Harry Grant and Xavier Coates won't back up for Melbourne. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of news with respect to our next game, which is the Titans versus Melbourne. The Gold Coast. What can I tell you? Kieran Foran's going to start. Tom Weaver is going to play halfback. Jaden Campbell's gone to fullback.
All right.
And where's old mate Brimson? He's out. So that's the change. Campbell to fullback, 4 into 5/8, Weaver to halfback. Mm-hmm. Jack Howard's going to make his return from injury on the wing. Bronson Garlick's going to play at hooker for the Melbourne Storm. That's 3 o'clock on Saturday.
Yeah. Now, I've got some memory of the Titans actually beating the Storm up in Brisbane at Lang Park at some stage in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I reckon I remember the game. It was like 36-34.
Something like that.
But it was a few years back now.
Yeah, a few years back there. Anyway, sometimes those memories are good ones. Yeah.
You wouldn't fall over if the Titans won this.
No, I wouldn't fall over if they beat anyone. You know what I think of the Titans and where they're going. So who's out? So Xavier Coates is out. And did you say...
Harry Grant's out.
Harry Grant's out. Okay. I'll go Storm.
Okay, Queensland Country Bank Stadium, the Cowboys versus the Tigers. Todd Payton confirmed on Friday his team would be 1 through 17 with all their Origin reps to take their place. So there you are. They're all going to play. For the West Tigers, Samuela Fainu is on track to play as he recovers from a knee injury suffered in round 11 before the bye last week. Young gun Heath Mason will play his first NRL game since round 1 after being named to replace Lachlan Galvin.
Yep. Again, a difficult one. I don't think West Tigers, Coruscant, Terrell May, Cowboys up and down. Is Nanai going to play? Will he definitely play?
1 through 17. Yep, they're all there.
They're all going to play, aren't they? I'm going to go Cowboy, but with no confidence.
Lachlan Galvin just came up there. Has he signed officially?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. 7:30, Saturday night, Manly versus Broncos. We know Turbo is not there. And another blow because Jason Saber's been ruled out with illness, Gus. So Clayton Fulalo is his likely replacement. Anthony Seibold will carefully manage Daly Cherry Evans through the Origin period. He has been named, but a decision will be made on game day as to whether he plays, which gives us absolutely no help whatsoever in making a tip today. Lehigh Hopewadi goes to fullback, and Jake's still out because of a head knock. Brisbane coach Michael Maguire says Payne Haas and Pat Carey are going to definitely play. Well, Payne Haas nearly didn't make it to the start line on Wednesday, and he's going to back up. So they're intact, but Manly have got quite a few changes.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in the Parramatta game the other night, the way Manly, Parramatta were really good. I don't want to take anything away from their performance, but that was a bit of a shock to the system, Manly. I guess if Cherry Evans plays, that makes a hell of a difference, and they are back at home, and the Broncos, well, they haven't been in scintillating form themselves, but if Payne Haas is going to back up, and so too Paddy Carrigan, I think I'll go, I don't know. No, I'm going to go Sea to bounce back at home.
Okay. Depleted Sea still to win.
Saturday night, yep.
2:00 Sunday. Rabbitohs versus Warriors at Accor Stadium. Now, my understanding is Latrell won't play. He's aggravated a knee in the Origin opener. So it seems Jai Gray is going to go to fullback and Fletcher Myers will come onto the wing. Campbell Graham was 18th man on Wednesday night but will play in the centres. For the Warriors, James Fisher-Harris back from suspension, having missed 1 week last week, the loss to Canberra. Mitch Barnett is going to back up Gus. So that's at Accor Stadium at 2:00.
Yep. Difficult one without Latrell. Warriors in good. That was a great game the other day, the Warriors and the Raiders. Geez, it was finals quality class there. They're a good side. Another went down last week, but I think the Warriors are going better at the moment, and I'll back them to beat the Rabbit.
4:00 on Sunday. What a massive game this is. The old Battle of the West, baby. It's at Combank Stadium, but it's a Penrith home game. Ivan Cleary has named all 5 of his Origin stars, and he expects they will all play.
Yep.
Isaac Tungle returns to the centres, with Scott Sorensen returning from suspension, while rookie Harrison Hassett retains his place on the bench. Brad Schneider's 18th man, but would come in if Nathan Cleary doesn't play. Sean Russell will shift to the centres as the Eels welcome Zach Lomax back from Origin, but they've lost Will Penasini because of concussion, and Mitch Moses is likely to back up. So they played together on Wednesday night, and they'll be opposites in the number 7, Cleary and Moses. Penrith Para.
Yeah, we spoke about this earlier in the podcast. Penrith in previous years have been able to rest their Origin players. Couple of reasons. They've always been very well placed on the ladder, so they could afford it. And number 2, they had a lot of depth with young players coming in that were on the verge of playing NRL football. I don't know that the depth is as strong as it's been in previous years, and certainly their position on the ladder means that they have to keep backing them up, which could tell on both Penrith and New South Wales as this series goes on. If they've got to keep playing club football, I don't know what their buy situation is going through.
I think they've got to buy next week.
Yeah, I thought Parramatta were excellent last week against Manly, like really good.
They're getting noticeably better every week.
Every week. And, that was without Zach Lomax and Mitchell Moses. I mean, if they back up, it makes them even stronger. And I look at the 2 benches. Dylan Walker, Luca Moretti, Ryan Madison and Joash Papali. I think they've got a little bit of an edge off the bench. I think Parramatta can beat them. They beat them earlier in the year, didn't they? Didn't Parramatta beat Penrith earlier in the year? I think they did. I'm going to go Eel.
Okay. I was going to ask you if you thought maybe... I thought all the Penrith guys played well in Origin on Wednesday night. Do they bounce off that? Does that become infectious within the team, I wonder?
It could well be. If Penrith get it right, they'll probably beat them, but I'm just wondering just how much fatigue is in that, and Parramatta going particularly well at the moment and strong off the bench, so if Origin players have got to be replaced during the course of the game, the answer is I don't know, but I think Parramatta got a chance of winning.
And then Sunday night to round us out, and what a good game of football this is. Speaking of improvement, after the Roosters got flogged in round 1, everyone's going, they can't make the finals. They're going to make the finals, baby.
Yeah.
How good have they gone?
They've still got Sam Walker to come back.
I know.
Yeah. So, which was why I was a little bit shocked that they let Brandon Smith go. I know that he was going to South Sydney, but I thought, well, your window's not finished this year yet going forward. But anyway, they made a decision. Connor Watson playing particularly well.
So they're saying all the Roosters Origin players are going to back up, and similarly Hudson Young, who only played 26 minutes for the Blues on Wednesday night.
Yep, but this is this Raiders team. They're going particularly well. They're fast and they're fit. They don't give up. This will be a cracking game. When's this? Sunday night.
6:15, Allianz.
Cracking game. I'm going to go Raider to beat Rooster.
All right, so let's go through it. I've given you the odds mostly. You're tipping Dragon,
Let me go through it. Wait on. I've got to bring them up so I've got them all on the one page. Okay. Dragon to beat Knight. Storm to beat Titan. Cowboy to beat Tiger.
Cowboys $1.38, Tigers $3.10 on the tab.
Seagull to beat Bronco. Well, that might change. Depends who plays, I suppose.
Manly $2.15, Broncos $1.70 at the moment.
Warrior to beat Rabbit.
$1.67, $2.20, Warriors favourites.
Eels a real chance against the Panther. Real chance.
Penrith $1.58, Parramatta $2.40.
And Raider against Rooster.
Toss of the coin.
Toss of the coin anyway.
Yep. Thanks, Gus.
Thanks, Matthew.
It's been a very busy week and we've still got club footy to come.
Yep.
That's 6 Tackles with Gus this week. We're back to our normal time slot of Wednesday and we look forward to your company then. Friday night footy tonight. Sunday footy from Combank, the Battle of the West, the Panthers versus the Eels. Have a great weekend.